Caution is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing a no run-through review on Keyforge, Call of the Archons, the newest game by Richard Garfield, who was the creator of Magic the Gathering. In this review, essentially, I'm probably going to be doing a lot of comparing between Keyforge and Magic, strictly because that there's a lot of weirdly similarities, there we go, between both of these games as they are designed by the same person. And you might be thinking, if you've seen any of my other no run-through reviews, I'd be like, oh great, he hates the game. Not true! The reason why I'm doing a no run-through review for this game is because, one, I don't really care to do run-throughs for card games, strictly because it's difficult to actually show, you know, all the cards and stuff like that. And two, it's just because that this game, like, I feel like my feelings for it are gonna vary depending on the types of deck that I play and who they match up against. The run-through that I had recorded was actually basically two types of control decks. And if you don't know what that means, a control deck in Magic, just like kind of in this one, is pretty much to prevent your opponent from doing anything. In Magic, it's from playing creatures, playing spells, playing mana, any of that. They basically aren't playing the game while you're doing everything. In this game, the run-through, both Devin and I had essentially two control decks that we just kept destroying each other's creatures and stealing and capturing Ember, and it was just a slog, and we were pretty much bitching the entire time. So, what are my feelings towards Keyforge? Well, I think it is actually a very, very good game that has some flaws for me. And as my usual discussions or reviews, I'm going to talk about things that I don't like. And I have played this with multiple people, I've played it multiple times, with multiple decks, and these complaints have held pretty much every single game. So my biggest complaint, my personal biggest complaint with this game, as is, and I believe that they are going to release other sets similar to how Magic releases their different sets. I think they're going to do that here. But as is, based off of the 4 decks that I have played, a lot of this game is you doing stuff on your turn and you waiting for your opponent to do stuff. There is very little interaction aside from... I mean, there is interaction, obviously, it's a 2-player game, but between... It's weird. Essentially, there's no instants, there's no counters, there's none of that. If I play a creature on the board, he comes on exhausted, and it's like, great, okay, he's there. My opponent, can already have creatures, so then all he does is just, he could in turn just destroy my creature, so it's like, great. So a lot of what I felt a lot of decks that I played did was just keep destroying other people's creatures, and you want to do that because it prevents them from either destroying yours, they get benefits from attacking, or a lot of cards hinge on there being creatures on the board. And it also prevents them from just reaping, which gives them Ember. So it's kind of extremely annoying to play one creature, or a bunch of creatures, and then they just get destroyed. Like, there's a card called Gateway to Dis, or Gateway to D, or however it's pronounced. And it's just to destroy every creature. And it's like you can't counter that. You can't stop that. You just have to let that happen. And I can see, I guess some people might like that because they know that they will always get to play their cards. But at the same time, it's not fun going the other way around because you're like, wow, I wish I could counter that. Wish I could do something. Wish I could, you know, return... Like, I wish there was... Funny enough, one of my complaints with Magic a long time ago was the stack rule. I wish there was a stack in here. Or at least some type of counter mechanism where it's like, okay, I'm going to destroy that creature. No, I'm going to cancel that card. So, I mean, but here's the real big problem with that. And this was a complaint from everyone I played. Kat, Devin, and Josh. Those people have been on my channel before. Those 3 people had the same complaint, and they personally did not like the 3 houses, the 3-house mechanism. And at first, I was like, oh, well, that's part of the strategy. You know, you are trying to figure out how to incorporate your deck with these 3 houses in it. But the biggest problem, and that I've seen so far, is that there is no integration between these houses. They are literally just 3 separate houses put into one deck. Essentially, take Magic, take 3 tribal decks, and put them into one. But even then, you'd be able to do combos with each and every one of them because you have mana that gets spent on these types of cards. In here, that is not the case. You literally, on your turn, choose a house, and you can only play cards from that house, activate cards from the house, or discard cards from that house. And it's pretty much like, I don't get it. I understand that that's what this game is about, but at the same time, it's like, why? Like, you could see so many awesome combos that you have with this deck that you have that's supposed to be 100% unique, and it's like, for example, a Mars card is called Soft Landing, which is the next friendly Mars or friendly creature or artifact you play comes into play ready. Great! Oh wait, I can't play anything else because, like, I can't play some massive troll and he comes out ready. He doesn't come, like, it obviously has to be a Mars artifact or a Mars creature. So why have that in the deck? Like, why can't you integrate these unique houses together and have these awesome combos? Josh had some amazing combo, but he's like, well, I can't do it because it's from different houses. And I get that's part of the strategy of the game, but it kind of leaves you wanting more. Like, you want more out of your deck whenever, in all reality, you're kind of doing the same thing. Now, that leads me to Kat's biggest complaint, which is, why do I have 3 separate houses in my deck when, and I understand the game just came out, and that they're probably going to, and I've heard that they're creating new sets, and they're going to be probably more houses and more abilities, so it may make all of my current arguments and dislikes null and void, but as is, this is the complaints, and she was like, I don't get why we have the same houses. And her deck, it just changed up a little. Her deck had 2 of the same houses my deck had, and one of them was different. And if that's their idea of a unique deck mechanism, that's kind of lame. I bought 4 decks, and 2 of them, like, 2 of the decks, this is weird to say, 2 of them had 2 of the same houses. And the other 2 had 2 of the same houses. Now, I get if you cross-played those, you'd have a different set, but it's like, it's still kind of lame, because, yeah, the decks are 100% unique, and I'm starting to suspect that Devin might be right, is that whenever they're like, oh, there's these millions of different combinations of decks, well, yeah, you take one card of the Mars deck out and put a new one in it, it's a unique deck that no one will ever have. Okay? So there, a lot of the cards that I was playing against, I was like, yep, I have that card in my deck, I have that card in my deck, and, I mean, that's not really the same complaint against Magic, because you build your deck in Magic. So it was just kind of lame, and she just didn't really understand, well, how is my deck so unique and so special that you have pretty much all the same cards I do, just a different house. You can't integrate them any differently. I can't have these, like, if I have a Mars house with a Brobnar, like one of the decks I have is Mars, Brobnar, and Sanctum, I can't integrate the Mars abilities with Brobnar or Sanctum. Not really. So it's like, okay, really having that unique deck is nothing special. Same way, vice versa. You can't really integrate these decks all that much. You essentially just have 3 separate houses doing their own individual thing, but they all kind of they're all wrapped together around a theme. Like, the decks are kind of theme-based, not card-based, if that makes any sense. One of my decks is a control deck. One of mine is a ramp deck, and all this kind of stuff you learn through Magic and Magic mechanisms and Magic decks. So it's like he kind of took all those and all those ideas, and he basically assigned those kind of abilities per house, and then just threw them all together, is what it feels like anyway. So this was kind of it was like, the game works, really well, but at the same time, it's like people will compare this to Magic. And whether that's fair or not, I don't know, because Magic's been around since 95. No, 95 or 93. It's in the 90s. It's been out for like 20 years. And I think it's 93 because it says old as I am. So it is 25. And Keyforge just came out like 2 weeks ago. So it isn't really fair to compare them. But at the same time, you look at Richard Garfield, you're like, dude, this is your creation. Like, you pretty much took your things from Magic and made another game just trying to be a cash grab. And that's what I'm worried that this game is going to be. And I'm already starting to be proven right because there's already decks being sold for $200 or more with a deck list. Hey, you want this? You've played enough Keyforge and you aren't getting your deck because, and one, you're spending. I understand the decks are $12 and that's awesome, but because it's random, you have no control over what kind of deck you want to play. So if you're like, I really want a deck with these 3 houses and these types of cards. Oh, someone happened to get that? Great. Oh, they price gouged it. Okay, so I can... And it's like, great, don't buy it. But at the same time, it has that same mentality of Magic. You can build a solid deck without spending any money. But if you want a really, really good competitive deck, you're going to spend money. You have to spend money. Just the way it is. Like, Magic is that kind of game where the more money you seek into your deck, the better your deck will be. And they've omitted that and basically exiled that with Keyforge, which is one of the things I really, really like, is that you have no control over your deck. So tournaments are going to be played where, hey, you spend $12, you buy a deck, you learn your deck, and you just become better at it. Well, you can't really become better at it because you can't really integrate all the houses together. But anyway, with this, it's just kind of like people will buy more and more decks, and that's kind of where I found myself at is out of the 4 decks that I have, I like 2 of them. So it's like, what do I do with the other 2? I can't break them down and use the cards that I like in that deck, so it's like, great, it's a wasted deck, or I can give it to someone, or I can let my friends use it and see if they like it. I know someone who bought 12 decks, and I think it was 4 each, so they have a bunch of different combinations, but it's like, because they're $12 each, and you just kind of want to see what the next deck is going to bring you, you're just kind of going to play a deck once or twice, and never play it again. For the most part. I mean, obviously people aren't going to do that, and some might, but I already find myself wanting to just keep getting decks and testing those out, but I'm not gonna. So those were kind of the things that I didn't like about it. To reiterate, no integration of really houses because you have to call a house. Josh's biggest complaint was that as well. You can't integrate the houses. Devin's was it's a cash grab, or he was worried it's going to be. That's the first thing he thought of whenever I said each deck is unique, so you can't deck build. And then Kat's was why are our decks the same? And then mine is waiting for your opponent just to destroy and mess with your shit. You can't stop them from stealing Ember, you can't stop them from capturing Ember, you can't stop them from destroying your artifacts, you can't stop them from destroying your creatures. You literally do your turn and you wait. They do their turn, great, you destroyed all my stuff. Okay, I'll play more creatures. Oh, you destroyed them again. So those are all the negatives that I can that I've accumulated overall the experience of Keyforge. So now the things that I do like about the game. One of my favorite things about Keyforge is the ease of access that this game has over Magic. Magic is you have to learn all these cards, and you have to learn how to deck build, and you have to learn how to deck build well, and it just kind of never ends. Now, the latest format of Magic that I've played is Commander, so it's a little bit more, I would say, difficult to create a very solid deck because it's 100 card decks. Well, 99 cards with a Commander, so you really kind of want to build your deck around your Commander. But you have to have this extensive knowledge of the Magic cards to build a deck, and it doesn't really work because I used to have 6 decks and I sold all of them except for 3, and you can't really hand someone a deck and be like, okay, great, you just play this, because they're not going to know everything. They don't know, hey, here's a fetch land. Oh man, what land should I really? Or here's a tutor. So I'm a search. They still know what your deck is meant to do, and even if it's meant to do one thing, it probably has a lot of steps it needs to do. Or if it has a bunch of things, they don't know what those bunch of things are. With Keyforge, that is not the case. And I tested this earlier with just handing a deck to someone who has played Magic once, and I just wanted to see how well they did. And yeah, you can jump into this game without having any previous knowledge of Magic, or really of deck building, or of cards, or these kinds of games, which I think is really great. I like the fact that they have a game kind of like Magic, with same ultimate theme, really. Not theme of the game, but theme of the card integration and decks, that someone who has no experience can jump in and play their deck. And the skill is learning your deck, and maybe finding those combos in there. One of the things that I personally like, but some people, I can definitely see a lot of people hating, is the fact that it doesn't require any deck construction. Just because, well, I like it, but I don't like it. I like it because it saves a bunch of time. You spend $12, you buy a deck, great. If you find a deck that you like, great. Just play that deck. Just play that deck over and over, and it's like, yay, I'm having fun because I didn't have to build this. I didn't have to put this together. I didn't have to put a deck together and then be crushed whenever it sucks, and then you feel like an idiot. The deck already works. Not against every deck, but at least it works in that it does what you want it to. Unlike, obviously, like Magic, where, hey, I have a mill deck, but, oh, great, you're a burn deck, so you kill me before I can mill you out. Stuff like that. So there's that matchup. But at the same time, I can see a lot of people having problems with the fact that there is no deck building, because you have no control over what kind of deck you get, and like I've mentioned before, you will keep potentially buying more and more decks just to find one that you want to play, and at that point you might be burned out on it. The artwork is fantastic in this game, very vibrant, very colorful. They did a great job on the artwork, just like Magic has that extensive and detailed artwork that I love. Like in older Magic cards, I don't like. But pretty much like newer Magic cards, or even like up to a certain point, I haven't found a Magic card that I didn't like the artwork on. And same here, like I love the artwork. They added a quick rules thing, so a lot of the rules are on a PDF, and that's kind of annoying because I'd like to just have that on hand. And there are some finicky things. So the other thing I do really like is how your turn works. Very smooth, very free-flowing. There's no, okay, well, untap, upkeep, draw. Okay, first main phase, combat, second main phase, end main phase. There's none of that. There's no, okay, well, I'm going to play this card. Okay, then I'm going to do this. And then, oh, you have to do that. So now we have this thing. And then I have, it goes into it's your turn in between this separate phase that we have the stack thing going on, and then now the stack resolves because no one can do anything, and then now we have to see, okay, what happened. Okay, now that's resolved. Now I'm going to continue on with this phase. There's none of that. It's literally on your turn. If you have 6 Ember, you unlock a key. Great. Other cards can make them more expensive, but potentially 6 Ember, you unlock a key, great. You have to. And you can't sandbag. You can't hold all, you can't, and you wouldn't really want to because there are so many cards about messing with an opponent's Ember that it would only probably hurt you. But potentially, you can't ever have 18 Ember and then just spend it all and win the game. It will take you at least 3 turns to have, if you have 18 Ember, 3 consecutive turns to be able to constantly unlock keys. But I really like that. So you spend your Ember, then you go to your turn where you select a house. And whenever you select your house, these are the only cards you can play, activate, or discard. I like the fact you can freely discard cards, and just to get more cards into your hand. It's like, okay, well, none of these are really affecting me or my opponent right now, so I'll get rid of them, because you're going to get your card back. you can't draw, you lose. There's no milling. It's you shuffle your discard pile, that's your deck. But I really like the free-flowing nature of your turn after you select your house. You just play as many cards from that house as you want. So if you have 5 creatures of the same house, great, you have 5 creatures on the board. That's awesome. So there is some... I mean, yeah, if you're playing one creature at a time, it's probably going to get destroyed, but then just hold on to it until you just draw a bunch of creatures. From, like, Brobnar, for example, they're big fire-type creatures, so it's just like, bam, now I have an army. And then unless, of course, they just have the Dis faction, which just board wipes a lot of stuff. But, I mean, there is those matchups, and I do like that part. I like all the different houses. Like, my favorite house is... I do have my favorite house, and, I mean, a lot of them are fun, and I like all of them, but I just wish that the combinations were better in your own deck. I like Brobnar a lot. They're just big and just heavy creatures. What's weird is that their health and their power are one and the same. Well, not really one and the same, but like what their power, that's how much damage. If it's a 5, that's how much damage they dish out. But that's also their health. So at first I was like, wait, so if their health goes up, does their power go up? Like if and I still don't, I think so, but I'm not quite sure because I could never find it anywhere in the quick rules or in the actual rule book. But I do know if their health goes down, their power stays the same. So I'm assuming if their health goes, or if the power goes up, their health doesn't go up. Their health is always that number. But it's just finicky stuff like that. There was another issue with like a card named Bad Penny, where when she is damaged, she goes into the opponent's hand. Or if she's destroyed, not damaged. If she's destroyed, she goes back into the opponent's hand. Well, my question is, like, can you play a card that kills her on your turn if you call the same house, and then she goes, can you play her again? Like, just immediately. Because there's no phases. There's no, okay, well, now at the end of the phase, everyone who's damaged dies. So, just stuff like that. But I do really like the freedom of the player's turn. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to play this card that has a play ability that returns creatures. Great, there's none there. So he's done. Now I'm going to play the rest of mine so I can actually have an army. Then I'm going to play an artifact that lets me do, or you can't really activate artifacts, but I'm playing an artifact, and then I'm going to play this creature that does an ability that affects this creature. You can do stuff in that order, and there's no real phases. There's no tapping for mana to see if you can do it. There's no resource management, really. You just get to play your cards, and that always feels awesome. Like, unless you have a really crappy hand, which you can still mitigate by by just discarding cards that you don't need. I do really like that. Almost every turn you feel like you are doing something, unlike in Magic, where a lot of times it's just like, great, I keep getting screwed on my deck, and nope, I have no cards that let me draw more, so I can only ever draw 1. You will always have a hand of 6 in this game, which I also really like. You draw at the end of your turn, not the beginning, so you have some control over that. And then the game is pretty quick, unless you get a slog like 2 control decks against each other. And God, that sucked. That really sucked. I mean, that's pretty much it. The only other thing I can think of is that they have a chain or a handicap, which big decks, or not big decks, some big cards that like are power moves give you chains, which ultimately determine your hand size, or how many cards you get to draw at the end of your turn. So if I play a card that's like destroy every creature on their board, that card gives me 3 chains. So now if I have a hand of 5, I don't get to draw 1 at the end of my turn because it's a -1 card modifier. So it goes down at the end of your turn. It goes down by 1. But over time, if you're playing all these really heavy cards and your chain goes up, you're going to have no cards in your hand, and that's gonna, obviously that hurts. Like, hand management and card draws in Magic and in this game are really important. So, I mean, that's really all I can think of. I've had 2 games where I ran away with a victory. The other like 3 or 4 games I had, it was pretty close. But I don't think anyone in my group, except maybe Josh, is interested in playing. So So that is my thoughts on Keyforge, and potentially everyone else's thoughts. They just didn't need to be here for it, because I kind of granted. They also like the game. Josh liked the game. He even said, Richard Garfield, you still got it. Like, it's still a solid game. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I do, and I do enjoy playing this game, but that's just because I realize it for what it is. Do I still like Magic more? I do. Like, I like Magic quite a bit, especially Commander a lot. But that's because if I'm like, I want to play this deck, I have that conscious decision. Like, I can integrate awesome combos from any card within Magic, whereas here, you don't really get all these awesome combos from your deck. You see them. Like, I always see a bunch, but I'm like, different houses. Okay. So that's that. And I hope they do more of that. I hope they, I mean, some say friendly creatures, but none of them really, like, they just don't do a whole lot, at least in my decks, and that's the difficult part. You guys may be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have this deck that integrates all my houses completely, and it's like, that's fantastic. That's a problem, potentially a problem with a lot of people, for a lot of people with this game, is, great, I didn't get that deck, and I may never get that deck, so I'm just going to keep giving Fantasy Flight money, and in the hopes that I get a deck that I like, and that's that. So that is Keyforge on a scale of 1 to 10. Obviously 5 being average, 10 being perfect, and 1 being straight up gutter shit. I'm gonna give it a 7. I think it's a solid 7. I do think it's an above average game. I think it could easily be an 8 or 9 if they start integrating counters and card combinations. I'm not saying they have to integrate deck building. No, that's actually, like I said, one of my favorite things is that it is ease of access. But at the same time, it can be frustrating if you never get, like, let's say they release these counter decks and you just happen to never get them. So it's like, great, I don't have counters. You do? Okay, cool. They may never do that because of that very reason. So then more houses, a bunch more houses, like a shit ton of houses. So great, you have a house I've never seen before. That would be awesome. And then now I have to kind of learn your deck, and now learn my deck in a different way to combat your deck, similar to Magic. It works the same way. But as of right now, I have a lot of houses that are pretty close to being the same. So yeah, it's a 7. It's a 7 for me. I think a 6 is too low. I do think it is not slightly above average. It is above average. And I mean, I am going to keep this game. I'm going to see what they do with it, and potentially I might pick up a few more decks just to round out the variety, but yeah, I think a 7 out of 10 is a good number for Keyforge. So, let me know what you think of Keyforge in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching this, and if you like this video, then click the subscribe button below to enjoy any video that I put out. And right next to that subscribe button is a little bell. Click that so you get notified of whenever I actually upload these videos. If you want to support the channel, you can definitely visit my Patreon page. The link is in the description below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.